Welcome to RVU, an RV insider podcast where I will interview industry experts, icons, and influencers. Class is in session for all things RV. I'm your host, Angie Morrell, and today I am so honored to get to meet a true industry icon in Mr. Bob Tiffin. So thank you so much for being with us here today.
It's our pleasure. I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad we're able to be here.
Me too. So I am just excited to get to know you and visit. We've been here in Red Bay for a couple days, and I've been so impressed with everything I've seen. But mainly, I want to talk about with you, how did this all start? Why did you build your first RV in 1972?
Well, that's a good question. But actually, before we started, we had 3 RV plants here in our area. We had one that built Safari, and one that built Sandpipers, and one that built Sunliners, and they were all right here. My dad started the business in 1941. It was a building supply business and hardware store. And those guys that had the plants here, they would come, they all lived here in Red Bay, and so they would come by here each day and by odds and ends that they needed to finish the day out. That's just the way business is. And this business, you're always running out of something.
Oh, believe me, I know. We're always looking for parts.
That's right. There's so many pieces. And so they would come by in the morning and stay a little while at the store and pick up things they needed for the day, and then they'd come back by that afternoon after we went home for work. And so, of course, I knew those guys. They all were from town here, and you know, everybody at Red Bay was a small town. Back then, it wasn't but about 2,500 to 3,000 people. And so in 1964, Commodore Corporation moved into Red Bay, and they built the Sandpiper Motorhomes. And they stayed here 4 years, and for whatever reason, they left. And when they left, they had trained a good bit of people. And so there was 2 companies started from that one company, and one was down at Tremont, Mississippi, and one at Iuka. And they built, the ones in Tremont built Sunliners, and the one over at Iuka built Safaris.
I've seen Safari. I think I've seen a Safari out there on the road.
Yeah, you've seen those because there was a guy named Matt Perlock took that name and made a big motorhome with it out in Eugene, Oregon, and he built them for several years out there. And of course, he passed away, and that company went out of business, and the name's going by the wayside too. I don't know if anyone's using that name now or not, but
not that I'm aware of.
But we just
maybe you should bring it back.
Well, we could, there's no doubt about it. We got a lot of name brands here that we use. But when the last one went out of business here down at Tremont and at Iuka, then since we'd been selling materials to them, we were a little bit familiar with what they were doing. So I told my dad, I said, that would be a pretty good business for us to be in. When we have a cotton gin too, of course. Y'all are from Texas, so you understand cotton.
Right.
And I was gin cotton in the fall. We had the gin building is still up there. It's our R&D building. And we had 2 big warehouses with it. So I said, well, we could build those motorhomes down there in a new cotton gin warehouse that we built. Mm-hmm. So it's turned into our cabinet shop now. And so that's what we did. We started production in that big building, and we're still using it today. And we had good trained employees, and we just hired those guys. And of course, I didn't know anything about production on motorhomes.
I was going to say, yeah, but to just start from a raw chassis and start building a house on it. So I guess they knew what they were doing. You just had the vision, right?
Yes, that was exciting times. And of course, when I told my dad, I said I could run it. And I knew a little bit about what to do because I'd seen those guys build. So I started, and I was in the office like this one day, and we'd been in business. We started in September of 1972, and then we built 5 motorhomes that year. But when we started, we bought material and all this material from Sunliner down here at Tremont, Mississippi. So we brought all the raw materials in here, and back then everyone built the motorhomes with wood.
Okay.
And so I said, man, I don't know, that don't sound good to me. Building a big heavy motorhome going down the road 67 miles an hour, and it's got wood frames. So what we did, we decided to build the frames with aluminum tubing, and then put a nice steel heavy floor under it out of the welding shop, out of steel. And so that's what we did. So we sold all metal construction, aluminum and steel.
Wow.
And so we had a sort of a unique vehicle to sell when we would go to shows, because there was Winnebago, and they had a wood sidewall, and everyone else had a wood sidewall. They would take a 2x4 stud and cut it in half. So they had just a little bit less than 1.5 inch square piece of wood for their sidewall frame.
That's a little worrisome, isn't it?
Oh, it'd be worrisome for me if I owned on some of those.
Right.
But when we started with aluminum, we built these little cages. We built these little miniature motorhomes. Mm-hmm. We put the steel floor under it, and then we put the sidewalls out of aluminum too. And then we gave every dealer one of those little models, mm-hmm. and some of those are still around.
Well, that was you beat me to my next question. I wanted to know: do you have one of the early Tiffin motorhomes?
We have one of those. Well, we don't have one. We do have one of the first motorhomes we built, and it's in the warehouse up there. But it needs a little work on it.
Needs a little love.
We're gonna have to softly. It's sat outside here for a long time. We just kept it out. It was a '76 model.
Oh wow!
And so we decided to put it up. This winter, we're going to put a new roof on it.
Okay.
And then we'll put it back outside and put it on display again. But yeah, all the motorhomes that we built, they should be out there somewhere, still being used, or every now and then I'll be driving down the road and I'll see one sitting out by somebody's house. It looks like it's been abandoned, but it still looks good.
That says a lot. Who did you sell your first motorhome to?
We sold the first motorhomes to Camper City in Tampa, Florida.
Really? So you just got in it and did you drive it down?
Yeah, I didn't drive it. One of our drivers, Roland Ledbetter, drove it. He's still here.
Okay. Really?
So we hopped in it. It was a 25-foot Allegro, and he was in the rental business down there. Buddy Hill was his name. So we drove it down there to Tampa, and Roland drove, and I sat over there, and we talked all the way down there. And when we got down there, this guy wrote us a check for it. We came back home. We towed a car down. That's how we did it back then. And this guy was a nice fellow, but he rented motorhomes.
Okay, he rented.
And that first motorhome didn't survive. It got in a fire somewhere or another and got destroyed.
Didn't make it home.
But years after that, we were down at the Sugar Bowl. Alabama was playing somebody in the Sugar Bowl down there, so we were all big Alabama fans. We went down there to the game, and we parked in this campground out there on the Shelf Miniature Highway on Highway 90, and we stopped and we hadn't been hooked up long there at the campground. Somebody said, "There's an old Allegro right down here. You need to go look at it." Well, back then we put the identification tag on the outside under the window. And so I walked down there, and that was the second motorhome we built.
How neat!
And that motorhome had some age on it then, and it still looked good.
Well, that's impressive. That says a lot for the Tiffin quality. So you have to tell me, how did you Allegro? I've heard that name. That's one of your names throughout your models. How did you come up with the name Allegro?
Well, back in those days, we didn't have the internet. That was in 1972.
We had phone books.
Yeah, we had phone books, and we had the Trailer Life and Motorhome Life, and all the trade magazines did alphabetical order, and so they either did it with the name, like Tiffin would be way down,
right,
and Airstream was way at the top. And so I told Judy, my wife, I said we need a name that means something that's at the top of the alphabet. Well, the next words out of her mouth was Allegro. And that name means to speed up. It means lightly and happy. It had all the right names. And so I said, we'll trademark that name. And so we started calling it Allegro.
I like
that. And that was a great name. Of course, it was easy for people to remember.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Right? So the first few we built, we put a big old A on the side of them. Winnebago was big about putting a big W on there. So I said, well, I need to put an A on it. And we did, and of course it was not very attractive, so we dropped that after a while. But that's
well, so you went from A to Z, because your other top of the line is the Zephyr. So is Zephyr where'd that name come from?
Well, there again, we were talking, Judy and I were, and she said, well, what are we going to name it? I said, I really don't know. Have you got any idea? She said, well, you like trains. Why don't you name it Zephyr? I thought it for a minute, and I said, well, that's a great name. What about Zephyr? So we looked it up, and the Zephyr name has been used for a long time, different things. But the train that got all the publicity about it was a train that was called a Zephyr that ran from Denver, Colorado to Chicago, and it left early in the morning, and it got there before daylight, before dark.
Oh, wow.
And it was called the Zephyr. And so I've got a picture of it right over there on the wall. And so we decided to name it Zephyr. And it has a meaning too. The word Zephyr means a strong west wind.
Oh.
And so all of our names, every one of our names
they
means
work.
something. Yes, they sure.
Well, Judy's pretty good.
Oh, she was great. she was a musician, so that's the reason she knew what Allegro meant. Mm-hmm. And of course, we understood about Zephyr. And of course, another thing about Zephyr too, when I go to the car shows, there'd be an old Zephyr Ford. You know, they built some Zephyrs way back then, and they were nice. And of course, I try to go to the car shows.
Well, I got to go into the most recent Zephyr that's coming off the line, and wow, I was impressed. It's a beautiful coach. I am super excited for everyone to get to see what you've done with the Zephyr product.
Well, it's a limited production. We don't build too many of them. I don't know.
That might change.
We'll build. You know, last year we built about 50 of them, give or take a few. I don't know exactly how many we built, but it's a big 45-foot motorhome, you know, with a big 605 horsepower engine. It is a fine motorhome.
It's beautiful. I was just, I hadn't been in a Zephyr for years, and I got to go in the one the other day, and boy, beautiful interior. Just the outdoor kitchen that comes out from the bay was really impressive. I think you're gonna make more than 50 coming up.
We thought about trying to build, a couple a week, which would be about 100, and I think we can sell 100 a week. Of course, we're so blessed with my middle son Dan here. He is really, really talented.
Well, I was going to say, so yesterday I did a video on one of your products, the Phaeton, actually. And, typically when I do a walkthrough, I do a really thorough walkthrough video. I help out the technicians. I find something that maybe they missed, something that might not be working, or something that's a little, not working like it's supposed to be. And everything was perfect. Everything worked great. I didn't have any issues. I was so impressed with the fit and finish and quality of the product. So I was going to ask you, what have you done in the recent years to really up your game as far as your quality goes?
Well, it's an ongoing process. It's our coach Saban done it. He said everything has to have a process. Well, that had to have a process as well. So what we do, we have stations in the main production plant 1 through 19, and so we try to preach quality to our employees every day. And we have several meetings through the day. We have a supervisors meeting, then we have a quality meeting with the supervisors real early in the morning. We start early. We start the production at 6 o'clock.
Well, you start early here too.
Oh, yeah.
What time do you get here?
Well, I try to get here around 5 every morning, but that's not the whole problem. I drive 42 miles to get here.
I've been driving that. That's a ways.
I have to get up real early to get here at 5, but I don't mind it. I've always got up early. I remember when Tim and Van and Lex were at home, I'd come to work, and sometimes I'd go back home up here for breakfast, and they'd be out there playing in the driveway. So the whole Tiffin family has always got up early. And of course, we mean business. That's what if you don't get up early, then half the day is gone before you start.
Exactly.
And that's not good.
Nope. You're missing the best part.
That's right.
So Van has been instrumental in increasing the quality in
a big way. Yes, he would go early on when he started working with us years ago. He would start to go into the shows, and he would look and see other quality that other people had, and of course he'd say, "Daddy," he said, to come home, he said, "We're gonna have to really work hard on what we're doing." He said, it's gonna be hard for us to catch up with Monaco and Country Coach and Fleetwood and all these other big guys. And I said, well, we just have to work at it. So we just started working, and he came to work in 87. He worked some of the summers here in 83 and 84 and 85 and 86, but he came here, worked full time in 87, and that's been his job is to help our quality. Yeah.
Okay.
And be innovative in things to do and find better ways to do things in production that it's easier to do. You know, there's two ways to do a job. It's either a real hard way to do it or you can find an easy way to do it that makes it look better. And that's what we try to do, the second part of that, try to have an easy way to do the job and make it look really nice.
Well, you have accomplished both because I was super impressed. I have to say, I think your slides are the quickest slides that I've ever operated. So that was pretty impressive. Those new hydraulic slides were fantastic.
Well, we have tried all the slide mechanisms. In fact, the first slide out we built was the design that we did ourselves. You know, of course you couldn't find slide out equipment when we started. We started building slide outs.
No, I mean walls weren't supposed to move. That was just in the movies.
Yeah, that was 1993. And so we have a guy here, Don Hall is his name of his company is Sun Air Products, and his shop is in Belmont, which is 5 miles away. And Don was a real good engineer. And so I said, Don, we're going to have some type of a mechanism, you know, to operate this slide out box and make it go in and out. And so he got to looking around, and you know what the first motor was a satellite receiver motor. These big satellite dishes that you see at people's houses.
Right. That's the motor that you did on your first slide?
That's exactly right. But he went around, he picked out this motor for us, and that was real successful for us because it didn't give any trouble. And it would carry that slide out in and out real nice and smooth. And the first slide out we built was 16 feet long, and it was for a 26 foot leg roll and a 27 foot, whichever one you want to call it. And it was really successful, that first one. And we didn't know exactly what we were doing because we would go to shows and see what everybody else was doing. So we figured out what we're doing. And what was the deal? When we first started, that really kicked us off on slide outs was one of our owners that bought several of our motorhomes. He lived in the next county over in Marion County. And he come rolling in with another brand that had a slide out in it.
What? In Tiffin land?
He parked right out there in front of the office that day. He said, come here, I want to show you something. So I walked out there and looked at it, and sure enough, he pulled the slide out. It just had one slide out on it. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, where did all this room come from?
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I think that Tiffin coaches, especially the one that I was in yesterday, and I've thought it over the years as I've been in customers coaches, they just feel bigger inside. I don't know what it is, but they feel nice and big and roomy and, you know.
Well, we've made them wider and we've made them taller and we've tried to make them better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're doing a great job. And obviously Thor did too. A couple years ago. So tell me about the acquisition of Tiffin by Thor. How did that all take place, and how do you feel like that's impacted the Tiffin company?
Well, it was a big impact for us, you know, because all these years, you know, I was pretty young when I started the company, and so when I got up.
How old were you?
Well, I was 30 years old.
30 years old.
And so, you know, as we went down the road, you know, we kept being successful in trying to get motorhomes. We were real successful with taking care of our owners. And so it just sort of spread through the RV world that Tiffin will take care of you if you buy one.
Yeah, there's Tiffin that's made in Alabama, not Indiana.
That's right. What are you doing down here? Yeah. But anyway, you know, we just took care of our customers and started small and took care of our owners and tried to build a product that would not take so much service to repair, you know. Now tell me what you said again.
I was asking about the acquisition by Thor.
Yeah. Okay, so as went on, and I didn't have any idea about trying to sell. You know, it was not my intentions to ever sell the company, because when I got up towards 60 years old, everybody wanted to know when I was going to retire. And I said, I'm not going to retire. I said, I'm too old to retire. I don't want to retire. I said, I want to work till I get real old. And so that's what I did. And so in 62, it got a little louder. And when I got 65, it got a fever pitch. And everybody just wanted to know. Because, you know, I understand if a guy wants to buy one of these motorhomes that we build, it's real expensive. And
they are.
it's a long life vehicle, and they want to know if we're going to be around, because so many people that are going out of business, they want to know if we're going to be around.
Right, absolutely.
And so one day, Tim and Van and my youngest son Lex walked in the office, and they said, "Daddy, we think we want to sell out." I said, "We want to do what?" I said, "I've never thought about selling out." He said, "Well, first of all," I said, "who you think might buy this company?" He said, "Well, I think Thor Industries might buy it." I guess he had done some homework. I haven't done any homework on it. And so I said, "Well, you give them a call and see what they say." And so in a few weeks, Bob Martin came down and just came through, for a first visit. And then they came back a little bit later, and then we got pretty serious about it. And I tell you what, the Thor Industries, the industry part of the company of Thor, is really a nice company.
It is.
And Bob Martin is really, really a good guy.
He's a great gentleman,
And
very nice man.
I tell you what, we couldn't have handpicked anybody better to sell to. And it's been a great marriage. We don't have any issues with them. He did exactly what he said. He said, "I want you to run the plant just like you've always run it." And he said, we won't be around it. And they're not. We inherit 2 or 3 bookkeepers when we have a quarter in, and when we have a year in, we get 4 or 5 extra bookkeepers. But I understand that, because they're a public company and they have to meet the criteria. They have to meet what Wall Street dictates they do, and I understand that. But we don't have any problem with them. And if we're doing anything wrong, I told them, if we're doing something wrong, we need to know it. We need to change. We don't need to go several years doing something.
Do it better if you can.
These things that you do wrong year after year finally come back and they land on your desk.
Yes, they do. Probably better than anyone.
So our thing with Thor, our sellout to Thor has been as seamless as it could possibly be.
Well, that's great. And it does feel like this is still Tiffin Town. Tiffin, it does feel very family centric. And so.
But one other thing about Thor, Bob Martin said, "We don't want to put our name on anything you have." And they hadn't. I see it on when you go to their website, they show their companies that they own, but that's it.
But your day-to-day operations and the build quality and everything else is still just 100% Tiffin, just with a little extra parent watching eye over you, huh?
Yes, and we need that. Our customers, they don't understand that exactly, I don't guess. Most of them might. But the more people that you got helping you watch, the better off you are. And of course we get a lot of good input from our owners. Our service department is right down here, 4 or 5 blocks away, and we at any given time we'll have 100 motorhomes down there for service. This morning there's 60 or something down there in the service department. And we ask them to fill out a sheet if they want to, and give us the things that they like to see in a motorhome. That's where we get some of the best ideas.
Absolutely, from the people that use them and live in them,
and we sure know when they got a problem, because it's just 6 or 7 blocks down there to the problem. And so we don't shun problems. We try to help people, because if you put yourself away from what's going on in the plant, and you put yourself away from the owners, and never talk to them, you don't know what their needs are. You don't know what kind of problems they have. You learn from the problems you create, and we try to do better.
Well, I think you do a wonderful job with that, and I know that you're here every day still, right?
Yes, ma'am. I work every day. If I'm not here, I'm at a show.
And I know. I met you at a show. I know you don't remember, but I almost got in trouble because I left my booth. But I'm like, I know Mr. Tiffin is here, and he is iconic in the RV industry, and I had to meet you. So now I feel very honored that I've gotten to spend so much time with you. So
well, it's my pleasure. Yes.
Oh, well, you are wonderful.
In the market for a new or new-to-you RV, check out National Indoor RV Center's massive nationwide inventory. NIRVC has a wide selection of Class A, Class B, and Class C RVs. And their one-stop shop approach means you can count on their trusted experts for sales, service, storage, and more. Experience the NIRVC difference. Visit NIRVC.com.
Today's episode receives support from the All-Inclusive Motorhome Club. The AIM Club connects you with fellow RV enthusiasts from all across the country and comes with a ton of great benefits, including special discounts, VIP services, and exclusive access to incredible rallies and RV events, all for just $35 a year. Learn more at aimclub.org.
So your grandson Lee, as president of Tiffin, how did you make that decision?
Well, you know, Lee, of course, played football at Alabama in the 80s, and 06, 07, 08, and 09. Of course, I was real close to Lee and his sister, and they decided after he went to Birmingham, to University of Alabama in Birmingham, after he finished his football career at Alabama, he decided to go get his master's degree, and he didn't know exactly what degree. He didn't know where he wanted to get in the motorhome business or where he wanted to do something else. And so he made a real nice decision on his own about going back to the University of Alabama in Birmingham and getting his master's degree in hospital administration.
Okay.
He thought he might want to be a hospital administrator, and that's a great career.
Oh, it is. It is.
And so I said, well, Lee, that'd be great. And so he went down to Birmingham, stayed 2 years to get his master's degree in hospital administration. And after he got that and I got to studying it, you can't get a degree in building RVs.
Yeah, there isn't one, is there?
No, you can't get a degree. There's several outside things that you could get a degree for, you know, in type of engineering and things like that. But to run a big company like we have to have sometimes when business is good, you can't get a degree in that. So he got his degree in hospital administration, and you know, if you look at that situation, look at if you got a big hospital that's got 200 or 300 doctors operating in it, and it's got 300 or 400 or 800 nurses in it, or 1,000 nurses, then that pretty well mimics what we do here. You know, when things are really good, we've got 2,000, 2,500 employees, and then we've got the management team that operates that. And that's very similar to a hospital running. And right. So he, in fact, he went to Lewisburg, Virginia on his training, and he went up there and stayed a couple of weeks. And then he came home, and after that 2 week stay up there to see what they were doing, then he went back up there and stayed for a good long while. And then that company he was working for decided that they wanted to make him a hospital administrator in Columbia, Tennessee.
Oh, wow. So move him out of Alabama.
Yes, just right up here, yes. And so he went up there and looked around. And so I don't know what happened during that time, but one morning, him and his dad walked in here and sat down right here in front of my desk and said, Lee said, Papa Bob, we want to build fifth wheels. I said, you want to build fifth wheels? I said, okay, well, what is the deal? He said, well, he said he looked at the market, and he said there was a good market in the fifth wheel business. And so I said, well, we've never built any toll boats here, but I said, well, where are you going to build them at? He said, I don't know, but we'll find a place. And so they found a place over in Burnsville, Mississippi, which is about 38 miles over there in Mississippi, just between Memphis and between Iuka, Mississippi, and Corinth, and a little town of Burnsville. And so we leased that building, and he started building fifth wheels over there. And that was a real challenge because they didn't have trained employees over there.
Right, you have all the trained employees here.
Well, and before then, you know, when the Commodore was here and the two other RV plants, you going back to then in 1972 and 73 and 74 and 75, we had people that we hired that worked at the RV plants. And he didn't have that.
So he was really starting from scratch.
Oh, yeah, and everybody had to be trained. And we learned a lesson then that, you know, the employees that hadn't had any experience building RVs, it's pretty tough to try to start from scratch.
Sure, absolutely.
And so his dad van would go over there at lunch every day.
Oh, wow.
And stay there till quitting time. And so I'd go over there a couple of times a week and see what they were doing. And I could really see the progress that they made. You know, they about 6 months it was a struggle. But after that, and they started getting their employees trained, and Van went over there and showed them a lot of real easy ideas on how to do things easier than what I talked about earlier, the hard way.
Yep.
And the fifth wheel started coming off. They started looking really nice, and he built a great fifth wheel until we had this last meltdown in the economy. And then when that happened, I said, well, they're going to shut that plant down. We made this decision to shut it down. I said, well, we'll just make him president and let him come over and help us. And so his office is right over there, and Van's office is right over there, and so they're right here together. And he's right. I can see him, and I can see who he's talking to on the phone. He can see who I'm talking to on the phone. We just can't hear each other because we got a window. But before we put these windows in, I could hear what he was saying. But now we got a window between us, but that's okay. You know, we need to have a little privacy here when we do something. But that's how he started and got that experience. He worked over there 6 or 7 years before they decided to shut it down. But that was the best. That's been the best decision we made to put him as president. He is really an operator.
Well, he has a great presence about him. Just, you know, very impressed with everything that I've seen and heard, and the time that I've been able to spend with him. I think you made a really good decision.
Yes, and one ability he has is to speak.
Oh, beautifully, yeah.
You know, I get up and stumble around and stammer around. I can't talk like he can, but he can arrange his thoughts and put them in a book form like you got there, and make a great speech.
Yes.
And you know, I recommend him going anywhere he wants to teach. I hope we don't lose him to politics someday. I don't think we will.
That would be, you know what, he would. Yeah.
I'm going to nail him to that office over there so he can't get away.
Well, yeah, he's very impressive. So I think that's awesome that you're, you know, here 3 generations working in Tiffin, which is just amazing. And so how long are you going to keep working? It's the question. Well, you ever going to retire?
No, you know, I'm not going to quit. The only way I would quit here is so I couldn't walk through the door. And you know, as long as I can drive that 42 miles one way and 42 miles back, I could even get a driver. I don't relish the point of having to strap someone down to drive me to work and back. But you know, that could happen someday. But you know, my dad worked till his hip broke. He broke his hip in 1987, and he worked every day from 1941 till then. And you can count up the years. That's a long time. Wow. and he was, I don't know how old he was in 1941. He was born in, you can do he was born he was born in 1911.
Okay.
And he started his business in 1941.
He was 30 like you.
Right. He worked 6 years for his brother-in-law here in town, McKinney's Grocery, and they had hardware and everything there. That's where he got his understanding. And he went to West Tennessee Business School. Right out of high school. That was a 6-month course, and he was the best bookkeeper I have ever seen. I worked with him every day at the store there for about 10 years, you know.
Well, you learned from the best.
Oh yeah, he was really an operator too. That's where Lee gets. That's handed down to Lee from my dad.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. That's very cool. So what is your favorite thing? Why do you love coming to work every day?
Well, you know, I love getting up, and you know, I love coming to work, and of course, I never had the opportunity to do much thinking. You know, I just lived.
Well, on that drive. Yeah, don't you do a lot of thinking on that drive?
Before then, I just lived 3 minutes from the office.
Oh, sure.
And so I'd drive down here, and of course, when I walked in the office, it was business. Now I've got 42 miles. I've got 45 minutes or an hour coming to work, and so I do a lot of thinking coming to work. And I got a little routine that everybody does coming to work if they drive that far. I listen to the radio. I've got a tape I listen. I've got a real good friend that lives down in Florida, and I got another guy that lives down there, and they both are preachers, and they've made tapes. And so I listen to them coming to work every morning. And you know, it's amazing about the Bible. You know, I study the Bible pretty often, well, every day. But you know, you can study it all your life, and you find something new every day that you didn't understand, or you didn't know was there. Well, it's the same thing here. Every day I come to work, I'll find something different that I didn't know the day before, and you can do that, and it just helps you so much to learn what to do and how to treat the people here in the plant. You know, we have a company that everybody gets smiles. If you go around here and look at everybody, they're happy, really. You know, you can smile at them, and they'll smile back at you. And you know, if you got that kind of environment in the plant, you want to build a good product. That's just what it's all about.
Well, you know where it starts. It starts from the very top down. So I think that comes from you.
Well, we try to make it from the top down, and of course, the best way to do that is not get flustered.
That's right.
You know, and if something comes up, if the owner comes through the door and need to talk to him, ask him how we can help them. You know, that's the way to do it.
Well, I think that you've, the Tiffin name is synonymous with customer service. I've never heard from a Tiffin owner that hasn't probably talked to you personally, or you haven't helped them in some way. And that just speaks volumes to you and your company and the quality and how you stand behind the product. So I'm sure that's the reason that you've been so successful all these years and will continue to be as your family continues that tradition. So.
Well, we're going to try. We're going to keep everything moving forward if we can, as long as we can. And it's, getting back to, I would like to come to work the last day I work, to be the last day I live. So, that's just the way it is.
Work is your playpen. You like it. It's too much fun here.
Of course, I love spending time with my wife too. But she understands that. She understands we're going to work, and of course we do take trips. We use the motorhome. Usually if things are normal, we'll use one about 4 or 5 weeks out of the year.
That's fantastic.
And so that's the way it's been ever since we started. See, back in the old days, we'd take a motorhome and go to football games.
Yes,
when Van played and Lee played, we'd go down to Tuscaloosa and we would camp out there every weekend, and come home, get back home in time to go to church. But I did that for years, and I enjoyed the motorhome. I still enjoy staying in them, and I can still drive. Yeah, I can drive a motorhome. It go anywhere.
Well, good. I hope that you get to come to work every day and drive motorhomes and enjoy the golden years.
Sure.
So thank you so much today. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to talk to a true icon, the icon of the RV industry right here in front of me today. So thank you so much for that.
It's been my pleasure.
If you'd like to learn more about the things that we've discussed today in today's podcast, please click the links below in the podcast episode description. Also, if you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe and tell your friends about it, share it. We would love to have more viewers and love to make sure that you don't miss a single episode. Make sure you tune into our next episode to see which industry expert, icon, or influencer is up next. Until then, class is dismissed, and we'll see you down the road.